Welcome to My Business Matters, the Michigan Chamber podcast.
Hello, welcome to another podcast episode. I'm Jim Holcomb, President and CEO of the Michigan Chamber, and today's podcast host. Today we're going to recap Michigan's first ever statewide competition of the National Civics Bee and talk a little bit about why civic education in Michigan matters so much. We have three great guests today. A big welcome to Stacy Bailey. She is the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction for Okemos Public Schools. Geoff Bontrager is the Superintendent for Northwest Community Schools in Jackson. And just a tremendous young man, a middle schooler, Simon Reed. He's from West Middle School in Plymouth. He participated in our state finalist yesterday, and he took second place in a statewide competition. So welcome all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, hello, everyone.
Well, as I said, we recently wrapped up our inaugural National Civics Bee here in Michigan, and we did it under the Capitol Dome. It was an inspiring event. It was just so heartwarming to see these middle schoolers come in and flex their civics knowledge. Stacy and Geoff, I want to talk initially with you a little bit. Stacy, we'll start. In the education community, why is civic education important, and how do you work it into your curriculum?
Yeah, I think civics education is so important, especially given all the events over the last probably 5 years, especially. We know that our students are hearing a lot of things from news and from family. And so I think that education is really important so that they are able to form their own opinions. They're able to have a good working knowledge of what it is. And really, I think yesterday really capitalized on how they can take an effort of taking that knowledge and leading with that. And that was really inspiring to see.
Yeah, I know, young people, we all get bombarded with information, but especially young people online. It's hard sometimes to figure out what is trusted information, and the more education they have, the more background to discern what is truthful and not. That's just going to be helpful for them and be good students. Absolutely.
It's not just understanding the content, but all those critical thinking skills and decision making and communication that we know is so important to become an engaged member of our community. And the sooner we can start talking about that with our students, the better.
Yeah. And for the National Civics Bee here in Michigan, we started with regional competitions across the state. And Geoff, your school, Northwest Community Schools, recently was receiving recognition for being one of the top 2 school districts with the highest number of essay submissions. What was your secret in getting students involved?
Well, Jim, first of all, I agree with Stacy 100%. I'd like to jump on that just a little bit. In addition to that, what Stacy was talking about, sometimes people don't understand that our kids are just bombarded with social media and sorting out what's real and what's not, or what's relevant and what's not, and so on. So on top of what Stacy pointed out, which was excellent, is the fact that we have to be diligent about civics in this day and age, because there is so much misinformation out there. There's not the newspapers. There's not, kids don't watch mainstream news. They don't even watch the news. So I think it's more important than ever. And I kind of learned that from the standpoint of if we as school leaders don't support this, there's a lot of these kids, other than just what they would learn in class, really have no connection to what's happening in life, or history, or why civics is so important. So, as far as Northwest and our participation, what we try to do is to weave it into some class time and kind of front load it with what was going to happen and the opportunity they had, and we had 2 or 3 teachers that were very willing, and it worked out very well.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons, especially the Michigan Chamber Foundation started being a sponsor of this and really trying to bring it out, is it's not just about the kids either. It's about the whole family. It's trying to generate some kitchen table conversations about civics. What used to get passed down generation to generation, people are busy. Unfortunately, we don't have as many dinners together anymore. There's just so many constraints on life that as soon as you don't have the education component in place, it's harder to pass it down. And so, Stacy, I'm wondering, in your school district, how do you look at kind of weaving in civic education?
Yeah, well, I agree with Geoff, and you have to really put it into the content. And so when we think about, when we're looking at social studies, when we're looking across the board, what does that look like really for student engagement and student voice? Not just within civics, but what does civics look like at a building level, at district level? How do we help them to see where they fit into this community so that we can make those connections of how they fit into the greater community? And so that's really important, really from every age, starting at the elementary level and all the way up. So I love that the Civics Bee really targeted those middle school students as they're really starting to think about what they're going to do moving forward in their career path. Just a great opportunity to get them connected and engaged. And so I just think it can't be a standalone. It has to be something and part of the way that we do things. I mean, as a society, that's what we're going to need to move forward. And so the more we can help them see why it matters and how to interconnect that with what we're already doing, I think it's going to be more successful.
That's very well said, Stacy. You touched on that community connection. Some of these kids, because of the digital world they live in, without this type of scenario happening, really don't get that community connection. And Stacy, you nailed it.
Simon, I want to turn to you right now. Congratulations again. You took second place in the state yesterday, and great accomplishment. And I can't tell you how impressed I was listening to you when you delivered your essay, when you fielded questions. You were just so on point with everything you were talking about. I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about how did you hear about the competition and what motivated you to get involved?
So actually in my district, they just sent emails out to every student, every middle school student in the district, and I happened to see it. And I told my parents about it, and my dad really pushed me. My parents both pushed me to write the essay. I think it was a pretty small affair, like in our district. There was only one other person I knew of from my school who ended up writing an essay. So I don't know. Yeah, I just saw an email. That was all I heard about it.
How did you pick your topic?
I was given an email. A lot of emails. I was given an email about seeing if I wanted to vote for a new mascot name for the high school I was going to attend, and I read a little bit more about it, and it seemed interesting to me, and I didn't know really what else to write about. But as I started to write about this topic, it got really interesting because it brought up a lot of civic principles as well.
Yeah. And you were so well versed on it. Can you tell me, Simon, again, what grade are you in?
I'm going into 9th grade. So
that's great. And did you talk to your friends about it at all? Have you talked to anybody since the competition? Would you encourage 6th or 7th graders who are younger than you to engage next year?
Yeah, I would absolutely recommend it because you get to learn so much about our government, and you get to learn about how our community works and how the government works. Like a lot of people, I feel like, just hear things about the government and they might not necessarily be true, and they just hear things and they believe them. And like going straight back to the original sources, right? Founding Fathers papers, and like studying for your own to be ready for this competition is a great way to learn about government. Instead of hearing it from someone else, you get to go do your own research.
As a young person, do you think that adults, and you had a great topic with the mascot, do you think adults and people who run our institutions listen to your generation enough, or is there a way that we can maybe listen more and learn from you?
I mean, I'm not sure. There are definitely some good ideas that our generation has. I think a way to listen better, I don't know, if there was a better system in the school district to hear students' ideas about how the government should be run. And obviously, government is slow. Nothing's going to come quickly. But, if students can be heard more, or when they get older, a little bit older, they can start, actually bringing their ideas to the table in meetings or in their schools.
Now, the competition's over, so you can tell me on this. You were so calm yesterday when you were answering questions and talking. Were you nervous?
I was very nervous.
It did not show.
I told myself I wasn't going to be nervous for this one, but than I was. So.
Well, it didn't show. You were so fantastic, and I just appreciated you are exactly the type of young person that we're trying to motivate. And I hope you'll tell your friends back home, the ones who are younger than you, to make sure they get involved, because I think you raise a lot of good points. And the best way for people in your generation to make sure their voice is heard is to get engaged in projects like this.
Yeah, for sure.
I've looked at recent studies lately, Stacy and Geoff, and it's kind of disheartening when you look at how much work we have to do in educating people in civics. 70% of adults can't name the 3 branches of government. The vast majority of 8th graders are not proficient in civic knowledge. I saw a study yesterday that 60% of people would give up the right to vote as long as they could stay on social media.
Yikes.
That's scary to me.
Wow.
That is really scary. And, you're doing what you can in your district, but are there things that we need to be thinking about more broadly in the educational curriculum or how we educate? And is there anything that we can do? We're trying to do our small part at the Michigan Chamber Foundation to start conversations. Any ideas of what we can do to make sure that those brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, moms, dad, grandparents, that we're all talking about this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is actually what I heard Simon say about wanting to have a voice and an authentic voice. And so I think to answer the question of how do we start making sure that we're connecting, we have to do just that. Mm-hmm. And so how do we talk with our students to find out what is going to engage them? Yeah. And what we know is if we continue trying to engage them in civics of how we all approach civics, or we were so excited to be able to vote and what that looked like, it's just not the same anymore. And so we have to think about how do we engage in different ways that are going to be meaningful and authentic. I heard Simon say about a Google form that was sent out, and I know we do that a lot. But then it kind of stops. And so I think if we really want students to feel engaged and we want them to learn this information, we have to do it in more authentic ways so that they can get connected earlier and they want to stay connected after that. So how do we make it applicable to their life? And it's not just something in a textbook that they read about and have to remember. How do we make sure that it's really connecting and meaningful?
Geoff, how do you go about that as a superintendent? How do you figure out how to connect with students in a way that they're most receptive?
Well, Stacy once again nailed it when she used the term meaningful and authentic. Our kids, like Simon pointed out, they're bombarded all the time with info. I mean, we all are. But you think but from our perspective, we all remember the, I hate to say this, but the old days type deal. So we can put it in perspective. Our kids are so overwhelmed with the amount of information and non-information coming their way. Until it's meaningful and authentic, it really doesn't resonate. I have a daughter that just entered I call it, graduated from college, and has a real job now type thing. And so much of what we talked about didn't resonate with her until she's in that. It's real now. And I think the same type of thing with civics. If we can work hard to make it meaningful and authentic to them, and I heard the term of kids knowing that they have a voice. I think sometimes they can tend to feel like their voice doesn't matter. But this was a great experience for our kids to understand that their voice does matter. And I think that's something that, I think Stacy touched on it earlier. We're in a different era from post-COVID. Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that when people can wrap their minds around that and understand as far as from whether it's district, whether it's building level, so on, that really what civics should be here and now. Mm-hmm. And again, I think it was mentioned earlier, the term civics, what it meant, 30 years ago, compared to we need to put a shiny star on it, do something, in different, unique, meaningful ways to engage our young people into being a part of the process.
Yeah, I don't think, I think when we look at it, whether it's education, the business field, running the business, organizations of any type, you have to be flexible and adaptive and willing to change. And whether that's new technology or new ways to communicate, we need to make sure that we're looking at our audiences so you have the effect you want. I always look at, I'm a big sports fan, so I look at everything through the lens of coaching. And you need to communicate with people in different ways, and I don't think we can have a one-size-fits-all. We have to find a way to reach the most people we can reach and not just try to say, here's the way we're doing it, so you're going to have to do it this way.
Agree.
Yeah. Stacy, now you had one of the statewide finalists from the Okemos district. Any takeaways? I know you were there watching the event. Any takeaways?
Oh, my biggest takeaway is I was renewed with so much passion and commitment to making sure that we're doing all that we can to support these young people, because it was amazing.
Yes.
And listening to the advocacy and the presentations, it's clear that we have an untapped generation. And so, as Simon said, thinking about they have these good ideas, what I think can happen is you have these good ideas, and over time, things don't happen, and you become a little jaded, and you become more disengaged as you get older. And so it's really, how do we engage them now? But then how do we just start modeling for our community as well? Their parents, who they're watching us. How do we start modeling for that, some of those engagement, civil conversations, civil discourse, that we can disagree on things, but we can find that common ground. So I think it's more than just students, it's that. But the event yesterday was fantastic. I realized I have so much more to learn about all those court cases. So, Simon, kudos to you, because that was tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Simon, I do want to ask you that because, we talked about your essay and you answered questions, and that was fantastic. But there was also a large part of the competition was quiz questions. And they were tough. They were questions about the Federalist Papers, Constitution, Supreme Court case precedent. I'm a lawyer, and I've gone through this, and I was looking at some of those, and I was a little stumped. I'm wondering, how did you prepare?
Well, so my dad is an attorney, and he worked as an FBI advisor in Congress. So it's safe to say that he cares a lot about government and how it works. So he was very gracious and did something that probably none of those other kids got, and I got the advantage of he took notes on all the study material, and he printed it out into packets, and he gave it to me. And he's like, here, study these. So he put all the Supreme Court cases in there. And actually, I didn't know the Federalist questions, but last year in U.S. history in middle school, our teacher did teach us about the Federalist Papers, so I was able to get those, and I would not have had those questions without my social studies teacher. So,
well, you need to go back and thank that teacher.
Yeah, for sure. That was helpful.
Stacy, one thing that just struck me about what Simon was saying there, it doesn't matter if it's civics or anything else, that's the exact engagement. It's a parent sitting down helping a child study.
Absolutely.
It's making sure that they're moving forward in their educational process, and who better to help you than a parent?
Absolutely. And I think we can think about that. So how do we engage students when they're with us, and how do we engage the families in the community when they're not with us? And our community is far beyond just our students and their parents or guardians. We've got a lot of people in the community, and if we all kind of take that concerted effort to focus on those engagement, I think that's really going to be sustainable and allow it to spread across the state. I mean, I think that's the hope. How do we, as a state of Michigan, we want to have the most engaged citizens, and that's, I think, the commitment of all. I would say I'm probably not alone. In most public schools, we're very much committed to that and thinking about what's that new generation and how can we do something to support that.
Absolutely. It's about engagement. I think we all know we're stronger together, and there's much more that unites us and divides us, and we just have to remember that fact. We can't let the partisan bickering of the moment take away from the common good of actually having a full substantive debate.
Absolutely.
For sure.
It's been a wonderful conversation. We are running a little bit short on time now, but I want to go just kind of around the horn again and get any last thoughts. Stacy, we'll start with you, Geoff, and then Simon, I'm going to ask you what your biggest takeaway is from participating in this conversation. So, Stacy, we'll start with you.
I think attending the event yesterday was fantastic, and my commitment is even more so of wanting to have more students know about it and get engaged moving forward. And so I think that's what I intend to do, because I think this is a really good step that the Chamber has put forth so that we can really support our students in a tangible way to move forward with their civics learning.
Geoff? Any last thought?
I think that it's about that connection, and I know it's been brought up several times, but not only for connection of the relevance for our students, like this fine young man, Simon, but also the connection and relevance for the engaged parents with their kids. I mean, Simon's short, true story there about his relationship with his dad and how this came about is phenomenal. I mean, it just makes me smile. If we could somehow make that happen, encapsulate that, that'd be wonderful.
And Simon, you're going to get the last word here. Any final takeaways from your participation yesterday?
In the competition, I think it was awesome to be part of that and just learn so much about our government. So going back to me and my dad, like, I think that a lot of kids today don't have the same relationship with their parents. I mean, it's a part of being a teenager and growing up, but I don't think they have quite the same relationship that kids a long time ago, might have had. So if this can come about by civics, like this connection between parent and child, and also learning about the government, like, it's amazing. I really applaud what you guys are trying to accomplish here in our community.
Well, thank you so much, Simon. You're a very impressive young man. I have no doubt that you are going to be exceptional in whatever field you choose as you grow older and continue your education. So once again, time goes by so fast, but a very special thanks to Stacy, Geoff, and of course Simon. And thank you, all of you, for listening. Tune in to our next episode. Subscribe and like our podcast for easy notifications. And until then, let's all celebrate civics in our own community and find a way for you to be engaged.